Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Ford. Today what we're going to do is we are going to create some watercolor eggs or Easter eggs. Easter's coming and a lot of us dye Easter eggs and paint Easter eggs, so I thought this would be fun for us to do. Alright, so in the classroom we have these egg-shaped pictures. If you don't have an egg-shaped picture at home, you could just draw one out on a piece of paper. And then I have a template here that has all different patterns and designs that we can put on our Easter eggs. You can draw them out, or you can actually paint these with watercolors right on your Easter egg. So we're going to go over a couple different techniques that are going to use a lot of different supplies, but everybody's going to be using watercolors today. And we're going to be using praying watercolors. We need a cup of water with a brush. We're going to need paper towel, a placemat. For one technique, we're going to need a permanent marker. We're going to need a white crayon for another technique and some salt for something else. All right, so let's start out with our first one, which are permanent marker. So what you're going to do is you're going to draw out some patterns and designs. You want to make sure that when you draw your patterns or designs, they are curved. Okay, you want to make sure that you actually curve those designs. So if you're looking here and you see some kind of design that you like, when you draw it, you want to make sure that you curve the line before you draw the pattern. Okay, this is going to make it look like it's 3D because the egg is round. All right, so that you want your egg on here to be round as well. All right, now we are ready to start painting. Okay, so I drew this one out with Sharpie. You're going to take your watercolor, you're going to swish it around in the water, and then you're going to swish it around a color. You do not want to press down real hard with the paint. The paint is very light. Okay, watercolor paints are translucent watercolors or paints, so that when you paint with them, they're very light in color. So what you're going to do is you're going to start painting. When you start to notice that your paint is drying like this, you need to add more water. Okay, and you want to be really, really gentle with your paints. So you want to dip it in water, swish it around in paint, and then you can paint. And what you're going to do is you can paint in the egg all sorts of colors. One thing you want to be real careful is when you are washing your brush, swish it around the bottom of the container, okay, before you switch a color. All right, so let's paint another area blue. So I'm going to swish it around blue. I do not want to paint right here, a space next to this area, or an area right here, because what's going to happen is these two colors are going to bleed together, and they're going to create like a bleeding effect. Unless you want that effect, then you need to skip areas until those areas are dry. All right, the areas dry really quickly. It only takes a couple minutes for the watercolors to dry, and then you can move on to another space. Swish it around again. I'm going to repeat my watercolor or my purple, so I'm going to swish it around in here. Now, one thing I want to show you is, say you start with this purple and it's really, really dark down here. What you can do is, if you want it to get lighter, clean your brush, get clean water, and then drag the paint. And what's going to happen is your paint is going to turn lighter. Now, if you notice that your paint is really, really like puddly, like this, there's a lot of water there, you can take a paper towel and you can blot it, which means you press down and pull up, press down and pull up. And then you can take your brush and you can fix up that area so that there's not that much paint in that area. So what you can do is you can do this marker technique where you draw with marker and then you can paint in there with watercolors. So this is one area that you can work with. Another one is a crown resist. So what you do is you're going to draw patterns. We're going to work on this little egg with the patterns and designs. You can take this and you can do a pattern or design around the egg. Now, one thing that's really hard with this is you can't see the crayon, all right? That's one thing that makes this part a little difficult, but if you kind of move your paper around as you're working with it, you'll be able to see the pattern a lot better because of the glare. There's kind of like a glare to the wax. You want to press down really hard with the crayon, okay, to create the patterns. Now you are going to use the watercolor technique again. I promise you there is crayon on this paper. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to take the crayon. Let's do a red. Now I'm doing red is because red is not actually red with watercolors. It's more of a pink. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to swish it around, and I'm going to get this. All right, you ready? Here we go with some magic. So what we're going to do now is we are going to paint. And what's going to happen is the crayon is resisting the paint. Okay, and it gives this really cool crayon resist technique. Now, to even make this cooler, I'm going to make this do a gradation of color. So I'm going to actually make this go into yellow. So I'm going to clean my brush, and you got to work quickly because watercolor's dry. And at the bottom, I'm going to put yellow. I'm going to put yellow down, and then I'm going to clean my brush, and then I'm going to swish these together. And it's going to make a gradation of color in it. So it's going to look like it's red to a little bit of orange into yellow. So this is a really cool wet on wet technique with the things. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is a wet on wet technique. So what you do for this thing is you're going to take your egg, you're going to make sure your water is clean, and you are going to wet your entire egg with clean water. You're going to try to do really good clean water over the entire egg. While you're doing this, just make sure you kind of stay in the lines and it doesn't want to dry. All right, now you're going to pick colors that are next to each other in the color palette. So here are all the colors. You want to choose colors that are next to each other for this to work. So you're going to dip this into blue, and then what you do is you dab this on to the egg. Then maybe over here. Maybe over here. And what's happening is it's creating starbursts. Then you can clean your brush and you can do it with another color. So maybe some green. Maybe green. And what's happening is the wet on wet technique is making them bleed and blend together. Then I could do another color and I could fill them in these areas. And it creates this really cool kind of like tie-dye effect on your Easter egg, which is pretty cool. All right. The last technique is a salt technique. So what you're going to do with the salt technique is you can draw on this, or you can just leave it plain if you would like. I'm going to color mine in purple, okay, or paint mine in purple, and I'm going to fill this entire egg in. All right. So I'm going to just fill it in. Remember, if you want it lighter in color, add more water to it. All right, keep painting. Then what you're going to do is you're going to get salt. You can use table salt that you have at home. Okay, you sprinkle some in your hand, and then what you're going to do is you're going to sprinkle some on the egg. And what happens is you can already see that part of it is getting sucked up. Okay, so what happens is the salt sucks up the paint, and you can see these kind of like little spots. When this dries completely, you can flick off the salt. And what happens is where the salt was, there are little tiny white spots on your Easter eggs. So, I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about watercolors and all the cool things that you could do on your Easter eggs. If you have any questions, remember to ask. And just make sure that when you're working with watercolors, you need to add water to watercolors. That's why they're called watercolors. Be careful with the brush. Try not to mix the colors too much, and remember to have fun. See you later.